brief explanation of these passenger lists. And so this first one is going to Virginia, and you can see June 23rd, 1635. It says these underwritten names are to be transported to Virginia, embarked in the America, this is their boat, per certificate of from the minister of the town of Gravesend of their loyalty to the orders of the Church of England. So these are loyal members of the Church of England, and that was the dominant church in England. And if you look at the ages, you can see almost everyone is in their prime. So we got 23, age 23, age 17, age 22, 24, a little bit older. There's exceptions. I'm 32, and there's John Carter is a rare exception. He's 54. Maybe he's the captain. I don't know. And you can see that it's mostly young men. And so these young men would be going as indentured servants. And they don't have family. They probably don't have a lot of skills. They probably don't know how to read and write. And there are a few women as well. And it looks like, maybe these two are sisters. And maybe here's a Remington. And here's a Remington, but it's spelled different, so I don't know. Here's a Susan Death and Elizabeth Death. Maybe that's the mom and a daughter. You don't really know for sure. You can make guesses, but it doesn't look like there's very many families. They almost all look young, and almost all of them are young men. And so, in contrast, here's a ship going to New England. New England is the region of the United States today that includes like Boston, Massachusetts, Connecticut. It's the Northeast. And this was settled mostly by Puritans. So have you heard of the Puritans, or maybe you've heard of the Pilgrims? These are the group of people that settled this area. And it says, these underwritten names are to be transported to New England. They're embarked on the ship called the Planter. The passengers are brought certificate from the justices of the peace. So it's interesting that they don't have a certificate that says they're in membership of the Church of England, because they're not. They had to find a judge that would sign and say, hey, they're good people. And in this boat, you can see we have Joseph Tuttle's a tailor. That means he sews. And he's got his wife, and they're 39, 42, and they've got it looks like their kids right here, down here, the Tuttles. They've got a 6, a 4, a 2, a 1-year-old that they're bringing. And here's another guy. Thomas Savage is also a tailor. We even have servants. Nathan Hedford is a servant. We have a shoemaker. We have, little babies. We even have a lot older people. We have a 65-year-old. These people are more like middle class. They have a skill. They have a talent. They're going as families. They're not going to try to get rich and make their fortune. Like the people in Virginia, these are young men trying to get rich. These people are going for religious freedom. They're being persecuted in England, and they're bringing their whole families. They're bringing babies and old people, and they have skills. They're probably much better educated. And so you get kind of two foundings of America. One that's mostly based on the South, that's based on growing tobacco and doing hard labor, eventually turning to slavery and trying to make lots of money. And you get another founding that's based on a religious freedom, that these people are more educated. They make the first public schools, eventually the first cities, eventually the first factories in America. And these people create a whole different culture. And so right from the very beginning of the founding of the earliest colonies, there's a cultural difference between the North and the South. And this cultural difference only gets worse over time, and it explodes 200 years later in the Civil War in 1860, 250 years later. So that's a brief explanation for this.